I had a really weird encounter with a guy online about 2 years ago that I thought would be interesting to share. In the end of the whole thing, nothing really happened to me, but it was a bit eye-opening to the fact that these people exist in our modern world, and this kind of thing happens, even to this day. What's worse, it was on Facebook, of all places, that this whole thing unraveled. So, a couple of years ago, I got a friend request from a name that was vaguely familiar. Like, I knew the person's name from somewhere, but I honestly could not place where I knew him from, nor could I place a face to the name. Their profile was pretty well locked down, so going to it, all I could see was his profile photo, and that wasn't his face. It was a photo of a young child fishing. Like I said, his name seemed really familiar, but I just could not seem to figure out where I knew it from. So I just kind of assumed that it was someone from high school that didn't make much of an impression on me, or something. I ended up accepting his friend request, and as soon as I did, I got a direct message from him. Like, immediately. To the point that I almost assumed that this could have been a bot, and they were going to pitch some kind of scam to me. The message said, "Hello, G-Man12. Thank you for accepting my request. How have you been?" Which was definitely a bot-like message. I ended up responding with something like, "I'm fine, but how do I know you?" He replied with a sad face and a, "You really don't remember me?" I told him that I didn't, and he mentioned that he went to the same high school as me. Of course, this information is easily accessible, so I kind of just prodded a bit extra to see if they were just scraping my page for information to claim that they knew me. But then he mentioned a specific class. Ms. Brower's biology class, 4th period of sophomore year. He said that he and I were partners in the cell biology project, which made it all click. I actually did know this guy. He was someone that I was acquaintances with. I wasn't super close to him, but he was someone that I had met in the past. So I was a bit more comfortable with adding him as a friend. I mentioned that I knew who he was now and apologized for not remembering him, saying that it had been a long time and that I had a bad memory. Just trying to make light of the situation. We chatted for a bit, just catching up on a few things that had happened over the years. And really, it was a pretty normal conversation. The next day, I had actually gotten another message from him. It was just a hey. So I responded and asked what was up, just making small talk again. He sent a message that said, "I promise that what I'm about to say to you is not a scam or anything. It's not an MLM, but I have to shoot my shot." Obviously, this message did not bode well. I assumed that he was about to try to sell me on some kind of pyramid scheme, but it was actually weirder than that. He mentioned that he was about to go on a retreat for a group that he was a part of, and that he wanted to talk to me about going with him. I asked what kind of group he was referring to, because it was a bit weird to put it that way, and he told me that it was like a church group, and that it was what they called a self-focus and healing retreat, and they encouraged people to bring friends that may benefit from it. He then mentioned that he saw I was going through some tough times, and that it may really help me. I told him that I wasn't really religious, and that I did appreciate the thought, because I was going through some things. But I didn't really see me fitting into the group if it was for a church. He pushed it a bit further, saying that it wasn't a religious retreat, and that all were welcome. I said that if it was for a church, how could it not be religious? And he mentioned that they were not the type of group to push faith on their visitors, and that they would not be trying to convert people. It was simply about trying to find yourself and committing to self-reflection. This all sounded really weird. An event called a self-focus and healing retreat for a church group that wasn't faith-based or religious in nature, I was definitely curious. So I asked him if he could give me any information on his church, expecting something like a website or something. He then told me that he could actually get me in on one of their sessions, which was, again, a weird word to use. I asked if it was an in-person thing, trying to get out of it, and he mentioned that, thanks to COVID guidelines, they had moved their normal sessions to be online through Zoom calls. I relented, and said that I would just go ahead and sit in on the next one and see what it was all about. It was an hour of my time on a Tuesday. It wasn't a big deal to me in the end. The minute that Zoom call started, I knew that this was way more than just a little church get-together. When the session started, there was a group of like 10 men that walked into the camera's focus, and they were all wearing white robes and masks. Not like a certain group that one may associate with this kind of dress. They were actual masks, not hoods. They covered the entirety of the men's faces, with holes only cut out for their eyes. The 10 men then started chanting and stepped in unison to create a circle on the stage, and after about 5 minutes of chanting, they formed a line and stared straight into the camera. No joke, this entire line of men then started to undress, like stripping down from their robes to literally nothing except for the masks. I have never clicked off of a Zoom call so damn fast. This was a cult. This guy was trying to recruit me into some kind of cult, and apparently they needed to be naked to do whatever they did during their weekly meetings. I will give them credit for taking it online to be considerate of those that may not be able to make it in person, but yeah, not for me. The guy then sent me a message about 2 hours later asking me what I thought, and I mentioned that it seemed a bit cult-like, and that I didn't stay for the whole thing. He got pretty irate, and asked me when I left. I mentioned that I left whenever the old men on stage started getting naked, and he went off. He started on about how I didn't understand the importance of what they were doing, what their stripping down signified, and since I left, I missed the entire point of the session. I told him again that this was a cult, and that I didn't need to understand it. Needless to say, he blocked me, which was fine with me. I wasn't really interested in all this because, yeah, cults are not my thing. That's the strangest thing that I've ever dealt with online, and I'm kind of glad that I haven't gotten a message from him about it again at all, and that he decided that blocking me was the proper way to deal with it. And if I'm being completely honest, I kind of almost wish that it was just a pyramid scheme.